Right, so the craziness continues out of Wisconsin and out of pretty much all of North America. The NBA is, boycotting games, and the NHL looks like they're going to do the same. And it's really weird because I've continued, for this whole situation, I've continuously wondered, have I been getting things wrong? Like, do these people know something that I don't? But the more and more pieces of evidence that come out, the more and more it points to the fact that yeah, I was pretty much right all along. In that the DOJ of Wisconsin confirmed that Jacob Blake had a knife in his car that he was going for at the time of him um, getting shot. So again, the idea of him being shot for no reason is absolutely beyond insane. And if we're actually at the point to where the cops can't use lethal force after the guy violently resists arrest. And again, we have video of him doing that. I showed not the video, but the tweet that shows it yesterday. So you can check that out if you really want. But um, not only that, too, this is the other argument I've heard too that just goes to show that people have no idea what they're talking about is, well, why shoot him? Why not use the taser? Well, they did try using the taser and it didn't work. So that is one of the many other problems too. And I mean, this is the other thing too, that tasers aren't in a lot of areas they're not considered non-lethal weapons for the simple reason that tasers can kill you. I mean, it could stop your heart. Also, a lot of people, I mean, not a lot of people, but a decent amount of people, they get tased, they fall, they hit their head on the cement or the pavement, and they die because of it. So, and this is the thing too, that I guarantee you the outrage here would be just as much if they used a taser and it stopped his heart and he died, or he fell, hit his head, and died. I guarantee you the outrage would be just as much because these people don't care about police brutality. They don't care about racial justice or any of this garbage. They care about pushing the political agenda because there's no evidence of racism in any of these cases. Even if you think that the shooting, George Floyd and this example, or this case, even if you want to think that both those cases were unjustified, there is no evidence of racism. There is no evidence of racism because have any of these cops been caught posting racist stuff on social media? Nothing that I've seen. Have they been caught, making racial slurs while making the arrest? No. So there is no evidence of racism. And here's the thing that people point to is, oh, blacks are overrepresented in this, that, or the other. But the other thing too is that um, they're even more overrepresented in the likelihood to commit a crime, specifically black men. So the idea of blacks being overrepresented is it's not true. The stats clearly point that out. So again, that's the other thing to point out too. And the other thing to point out too is that these people have become what they claim to be against. And for the simple reason that, again, they claim to be against killing people for no reason and jumping to conclusions, but these are the same people that jumped to conclusions in the George Floyd case and in this case. They don't care about waiting for the evidence to come out. So this is the thing too, that they're everything they claim to be against, which is just one of the other many reasons um, why I can't even come close to supporting these people. Like I could not even come close. And this is the problem too, that people hear that and they think that you're the worst person in the world. But the reason for that is that people have no idea what's actually going on in this kind of stuff. Like they have no idea. Um, there was the other case of, I don't remember exactly what her name was, but the woman literally had a loaded shotgun, and I don't know if she shot at the cops or she had it pointed at the cops, one of the two. But the cops killed her, and BLM was all up in arms about it, and it wasn't nearly as in the news as this, but it was a big thing. And this is the point, that if cops can't use lethal force when someone literally has a gun pointed at you, or someone violently resists arrest, um, and goes for a weapon, then you're literally arguing the cops should never be even allowed to use lethal force. And if that is what they're arguing, which that is what they're arguing, because if they weren't, then they would think that the that other case and this case were justified, right? So that is what they're arguing. So why aren't these people calling for cops to not have guns anymore? Why aren't they calling for that? because their argument is literally cops should never be allowed to use lethal force. That is pretty much their argument. And again, you can't claim that's not true because these same people literally think that the police shouldn't be allowed to use lethal force when someone has a gun pointed at them or violently resists arrest and goes for a weapon. Like if you don't think that that's justified, then you don't think anything's justified. So um, the other big news story out of yesterday was this 17-year-old killed two protesters and injured a third. And again, as usual, the mainstream media is just blatantly bold-faced lying to people. And how we know that is number one, multiple videos have showed it. And I believe even the New York Times or the New York Post has confirmed this, that shots were fired at this guy or at this kid because he was 17, um, and he fled the scene. They chased him down. They I think one of the guys hit him over the head with a skateboard too. Again, so if that's not justification for self-defense, again, nothing is. Literally nothing is. And this is the big problem with these people too, is that their arguments don't matter. Like they say, oh, he's 17, he should. No, it doesn't matter. There's no laws that say, oh, minors aren't allowed to use lethal force, or they don't, self-defense laws don't apply to them. That's not how the law works. So the other thing too to point out here from Andy Nell, that again I think just provides more and more evidence that of this being self-defense. Um, in that he points out the three shot, two of them killed in Kenosha at the BLM riot have been identified. The first one, Joseph Rosenbaum, was the first one killed. Video allegedly shows him chasing teen shooter and throwing something at him. Rosenbaum was a registered sex offender for a sex crime involving a minor again. So that's the first one. The second one, Anthony Huber, was shot and killed in Kenosha at the BLM riot. He was filmed chasing down the armed teen and hitting him in the head while he was on the ground with a skateboard. He has a criminal history that includes charges of battery and repeat domestic abuse. So, again, another violent criminal. And then the third one being Gage Grosskreutz. Um, he's a member of the People's Revolution movement, which I believe is a communist movement, but I'm not 100% sure about that. He was filmed chasing after the teen with a pistol. He was shot at close range in the upper arm. He has a criminal record that includes being intoxicated and armed with a gun. So again, these are the people we're talking about, and this is the point that I've been trying, or a point that I've been trying to make, is that if racism is such a big issue and police brutality, then where are the examples of people who don't resist arrest um, getting shot, and also examples of cops that have racist stuff pointed, posted on social media, or making racist remarks while making or arrests or killing people? Where are examples of that? I have never seen any examples of that. And because of that, I think it's safe to say that racism and police brutality isn't this huge issue that's an absolute plague on society. And if it was, we would have plenty of examples of that. We would have plenty of examples of people not resisting arrest. Not that that justifies it too, but if you resist arrest, anybody with half a brain knows that the outcome of a peaceful outcome is a lot less likely, right? And again, where are the examples of actual racist cops? Like again, they don't provide any examples of that. And again, stuff like this just makes the movement look even worse, because if these are the people that are at the forefront of the BLM movement, then why in the world would anybody want to be involved with this? Like, these are violent criminals, every one of these guys. Again, so why in the world would you want to be involved with them? I really don't understand. So changing topics a little bit here, this is from Ben Shapiro, and he says the death of the Me Too movement at the hands of the Democratic narrative priorities is indeed rather stunning. And again, Bill Clinton was pictured receiving a neck massage from an Epstein victim. He was also confirmed to have been on Epstein's plane like 25 times, I think it was. There's also witnesses claiming they seen him on the island too, I believe. So the fact that Bill Clinton was almost, I'm not going to say 100% for sure, but almost certainly involved with, underage, sex trafficking and, doing stuff with underage girls. And the fact that nobody cares just proves that the Me Too movement exists to push a political narrative. The same thing as the BLM movement. The BLM movement exists to push these far left, narratives and movements. If it was actually about racism, then they would be every bit as concerned with the fact that blacks are way more likely to kill each other than whites are, or even cops. They would be really concerned about the fact that millions of blacks are enslaved to this day. Like, again, the fact that they don't care about that and they choose to care about the 10 to 15 unarmed blacks that are killed a year just goes to show that it's largely not about racism. It exists to push a political narrative, and it's the same thing with the Me Too thing, is that it largely exists to push a political narrative. It's the same thing. So anyway, the last thing I wanted to bring up here is from Ezra Levant, and he says there's a reason why they disarmed the Australians. There's a reason why they started obedience conditioning with masks and ratcheted up the fear factor. And it's from basically ABC Adelaide, must be a news outlet out of Australia, saying Scott Morrison says he expects to make vaccination against the virus mandatory as mandatory as you can possibly make it. So again, I don't know exactly what that means, but it sounds like they're going to make it mandatory and probably just fine people if they don't do it. My guess is probably not jail time. I think the other thing that they try and do is they won't fine they probably won't fine people or make it flat out in jail time for not doing it. What they'll do is they'll make it as inconvenient as humanly possible. For example, they won't let you travel. They won't let you get go into public spaces or a pool or a gym or something like that. That's probably what they'll do, thus basically making it mandatory. So again, this is one of the many problems too. This is tyranny. Like, this is tyranny, and this is the thing about vaccines too. Like, um, there's no evidence that they're 100% safe and effective. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't get any vaccines. I'm just saying that vaccines are not 100% safe and effective, and the idea of making it mandatory is absolutely insane, because um, if you get the vaccine and you think it works, then why in the world would you want to force other people to do it? Because you are immune, right? Because the only reason that you would be worried is if the vaccine doesn't do anything. And if the vaccine doesn't do anything, why in the world would you want it? Right? So again, it doesn't make any sense. So anyway, that's the last thing I wanted to bring up. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Check out the links that are in the description. Make sure you follow me on those other platforms, and stay tuned for more.